Welcome to People Potential with Amanda. Thank you for listening in today. I'm your host, Amanda Flasing, and I'll be bringing on various experts to discuss empowering individuals and organizations to achieve their full potential. Hi, everyone, and welcome to another episode of People Potential with Amanda. Today, I have my guest, Chantel Butt, who is the founder and Chief Excitement Officer at Covalency Coaching and Consulting. She helps individuals and organizations develop and change. Chantel, thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you, Amanda. I'm really excited to be here today.
Before we start, can you tell us a bit more about yourself and your purpose?
Yes, I love to talk about this. My purpose is to create safe spaces for organizations and individuals to learn and grow. And to serve that purpose, I play three roles in the professional space. I'm a strategic leader of change, I'm a facilitator, and a coach.
How did you get into coaching?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. For over 20 years, I've worked in different industries and functions and in leadership roles that drive change. And then I think it came the biggest change of our lives, which was the pandemic. And during the pandemic, I realized three things. So number one, our work world was experiencing a massive disruption to work norms, expectations, and systems. And two, within disruptive states, there's always opportunity. There's opportunity to innovate and adapt and grow. And the third thing I realized was that I wasn't sure if leaders were prepared to capitalize on opportunities that would come during and post pandemic. And I just observed that leaders were struggling to make critical decisions and take purposeful actions within these transforming conditions. And they were also just really struggling with navigating their own response to change. And I realized that they needed support. And so this is why now I'm a CEO of my own coaching and consulting business, really focusing on working with individuals and organizations to build the competencies needed to capitalize on change.
And I know you work with something called the SCARF model. So I would love to learn more about what the SCARF model is and how it ties in with coaching and with the use of neuroscience.
Yes, this is my favorite topic. So to set this up, my work is focused on supporting individuals and organizations to achieve their full potential through change. But the first step to achieving your potential is really knowing your system. So Amanda, I have a quick question for you. I'm very curious to know, what do you know how to use better, your brain or your smartphone?
I would say my brain, but that is because I know I have a lot of self-awareness and I'm really keen on continuous learning. I'm also very high on theoretical reasoning. And I know I'm jumping into Success Finder terms here, but I just love to read and learn more. And that's why I'm naturally drawn to a Success Finder where you can find out so much more about myself. But I think I might differ from many others.
I love that, Amanda. That's great. And you're right. We walk around with a supercomputer in our head. And it's interesting that sometimes we might put more effort into understanding our smartphone versus the computer in our head. So as a coach, I like to ground my clients in knowing themselves first before taking steps towards change. And it really comes down to this. You need to know some basics about your system first before you can adapt it. So thinking about neuroscience, I got to be honest, I'm a wannabe neuroscientist. And when it comes to the SCARF model, that really comes from David Rock and the Neuro Leadership Institute. And David Rock has written a few books where he explains what's happening in our professional world based on neuroscience. And I found that his books have been very foundational as a coach, as I've been building my practice in leadership coaching. So I'm going to talk a little bit, using David Rock's work, I'm going to talk a little bit about our brain on change. So as coaches, we need to be familiar with two areas of the brain that engage within change. And the first area is the limbic system. This is the area of your brain that makes decisions and processes emotions, and it has no concept for language or numbers. It only uses emotion. And on top of that, the limbic system contains our amygdala, which is our fight, flight, and freeze response. And that's our basic survival response. So if you think about it, the limbic system can tell you when change is happening. It makes decisions based only on emotions, and then it triggers your automatic nervous system to fight, freeze, or flight in change. And you know what? To prove this, I want to do a little bit of an experiment. So Amanda, I'm really curious to know, and if you could describe to us how you feel when you look at this slide.
First of all, dizzy, because I don't know if it's because I have motion sickness, but right away dizzy. And then I'm trying to zoom in on, and then if I like kind of squint, I could see the 4 eyes and 2 lips. So I don't know if you want me to keep going, but
No,
the
that's
first
great.
reaction was dizzy. And then if I focus in, it's a bit better.
Yes. So I apologize, but what I did is I just put your limbic system into action because it took one look at this picture and it kicked up a negative response because what you saw doesn't align with what we know facial structures should be. So that dizziness and kind of maybe not wanting to look at it for a long period of time, that's actually your limbic system. And this is a really good demonstration that any change that comes into your world, into your day, is automatically interpreted by your brain as a threat. So the key takeaway here about the limbic system is that if you want to change, you're up against this formidable opponent in your head. It's hyper focused on keeping you safe, and it interprets all change as a threat. So the second area to be aware of in your brain is the prefrontal cortex. And that's like the CEO of your brain. It's in charge of the highest level functions, such as prediction, goal setting and planning, and problem solving. And it's the area of the brain that you need to engage to manage change effectively. But there are a couple of hurdles. Number one, the prefrontal cortex is actually not fully developed until about your mid-20s. And actually, from an evolutionary perspective, it's the last area of your brain to develop. And two, this area takes a ton of resources to run. The rest of your brain routinizes everything to avoid using this area of your brain. 95% of your daily decisions and actions are actually routine-based. They don't involve the prefrontal cortex because your brain is really focused on resource management, and it doesn't want to use the prefrontal cortex unless it has to. So the bad news is that when you want to change something, your limbic system takes over to stop you, and you need your prefrontal cortex to help you to support the change, but your own brain is instinctively blocking you from a resource management perspective. So what do? Well, in this case, you need to find a way to move from a threat state, so really thinking that change is a threat, to a reward state. And this is where David Rock's SCARF model comes in. And as coaches, we can use this model with clients who are reacting to change in their lives. And we can teach our clients how to use the model for themselves or with others. And here's how it works. So SCARF stands for status, certainty, autonomy, relatedness, and fairness. And with status, our brain continually assesses how we compare to others because high status correlates to longevity, and our brain is always, driven for survival. With certainty, when we encounter a familiar situation, our brain can shift into autopilot. But if we register ambiguity, the brain sees this as a threat to our survival. Autonomy provides us a sense of control, so we can feel we can execute our own decisions, and that helps minimize uncertainty. And relatedness, our brain really, it likes to make decisions about whether or not we can trust other human beings or situations, and whether other human beings are safe. With fairness, we want the world around us to be fair, and when we experience unfair exchanges, it really creates a strong response. So as a coach, when I see my client reacting to change, I listen to what they're saying to hear what areas of SCARF have been impacted. That way I can use my questions and coaching strategies to shift them from a threat state to a reward state.
So how has using Success Finders profile insights helped you move your clients from into the reward state?
Yeah, that's a great question, Amanda. So the SFPI and actually the coaching debrief itself is a really great mechanism to move clients into reward state. Clients come to a coach to change in some way, and that means they're entering the room in a threat state. Because again, as we've talked about, our brain interprets all change as threat. The SFPI actually creates the foundation of a reward state because if you look at it, it incents all areas of SCARF. So it creates certainty by clarifying for the client their own competency preferences. And it creates autonomy because a client can now focus on what is within their circle of control when it comes to behavior change. And the debrief itself is a chance to create feelings of relatedness and fairness between a client and coach, because the client is learning about their competency preferences in a safe area. And this all impacts status, as this gives clients the information they need to drive change.
Absolutely. That is so interesting. And I was just reflecting on the first part where, our habits, I think you said 90 or 95% of what we do is driven by habits. Was it?
Yes, 95%.
95.
So we don't want to use the prefrontal cortex.
So I was reflecting on that, and that is why so many coaches and inspirational speakers have been really pushing change your habits and change your life. So those little changes to our habits, the 1% each day that we're getting better and creating those great new habits can really become automatic and have such a huge impact on our lives.
Agreed. It just takes a little bit every day, but by being focused and, using your prefrontal cortex as opposed to just routinizing everything, you can start to make incremental change.
Absolutely. So you're using the two together. So let's jump into my next question and go into self-awareness. So we know that self-awareness is key when it comes to personal success and development. So how do you think creating self-awareness through coaching impacts teams and organizations as a whole?
Yeah, that's a great question, Amanda. So let's first think about it at an individual level. So at an individual level, we know that self-awareness enables us to recognize ourselves and what we want to change. So now if we go up to the 10,000-foot level, organizations are facing unprecedented changing conditions, and they're having to plan for a future that they haven't experienced yet, and they might not be prepared for. So creating self-awareness in employees, leaders, and teams really allows an organization to take a clear inventory of its strengths and its areas of opportunity. And it allows an organization to really lean into growth so it can adapt to the changing conditions. You can't change something unless you're aware of it. And every day, every individual and every organization has a choice. You can either adapt or fall behind. And self-awareness is the key to that choice.
There's another saying that I really love, which is that success doesn't take time, it takes courage. So the courage to dive into that self-awareness and to look at those maybe zones of development or of opportunity and look at the brutal facts, or even as a company, here's where our natural strengths lie and here's where perhaps there's a gap. Or can we have it strengths-based and really focus in on where we really excel, here's where we differentiate, and let's be aware of that and lean in on that.
Yes, I agree, Amanda. The world is changing faster than we can imagine. And as individuals and organizations, we have to continually evolve. It takes hard work, and it takes safe spaces, and it takes some very honest conversations. But again, going back to, we have a choice. We can either adapt or stand still.
Absolutely. That humans need to constantly be in movement and keep adapting to survive and thrive. Well, definitely to thrive. Thank you so much, Chantel, for these amazing insights. We'll be able to share the resources. You'll see them on the video version of this recording. We'll also share them in the show notes. And you can reach out to Chantel at Chantel, can you share your website and specific resources that our listeners might want to check out?
You bet, Amanda. You can check me out at www.covalencycoaching.com. And I'd love for you to take some time to check out the neuroleadership.com website. This is where you can check out more of David Rock's work.
Perfect. So we'll also have those links in the show notes. And Chantel, thank you again so much for taking the time to chat with me today and share your insights about coaching and change.
Thank you, Amanda. It's been great chatting with you.
Thanks for joining us on People Potential with Amanda. I appreciate each and every single listen and view. If you've enjoyed this content, it would really mean the world if you could leave us a 5-star review. This will make a huge impact in increasing the visibility of this podcast, on top of brightening the day of a few people here at Success Finder who work really hard behind the scenes to make this all happen. We're continuously working on new episodes, so be sure to hit the subscribe button so you won't miss a thing. Until next time, stay curious.